Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Steel Flyers All Sports Network. We have got a very special show for you today, folks. How about that? We got three of the greatest minds in all of hockey. How about that? We got the GOAT. How about that? Off the wall hockey, John. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing great, Steel. How are you? Glad to be here.
Man.
This is going to be fun.
Yeah, man, doing great. And we got the main man, Pots and Pans, Payton on the radio. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. It's been a pretty good week so far. Been busy. How about you?
Oh, man, I'm getting better every day. How about that, folks? And the master, Pearlo Wisdom, is in the hizzy. What is up, brother?
Talking hockey all in the morning, man. That's good life. I'm loving it.
How about that? All that. Yeah, man. These guys right here are all part of the Steel Flyers All Sports Network. They all each have their own shows and they each do their own thing on the network. And we love having these guys as part of the crew. We love having these guys as part of the reason why you come here to watch Steel Flyers. So I thought I'd get them all together and ask them a bunch of great questions, because in the NHL, the trade deadline's coming up here real soon, and we're getting about halfway through to the season, and you're starting to see teams starting to separate themselves a little bit from the top and the bottom, and then you're kind of starting to see some of the teams drop away, and you're starting to see teams trying to, And so what we wanted to do was go through each division and talk about who's going to be the buyers and sellers at the trade deadline coming up here real soon. So we're going to start off with the North Division. That is all of the Canadian teams. And then we'll break each team down, and I'll have some questions for the guys, and we'll see where we are at the end and who's going to be buying and who's going to be selling and who's going to be going and who's going to be staying. So we're going to start off with the Toronto Maple Leafs. They are currently leading the NHL, leading their division. They're pretty much leading everything. However, their lead is kind of shrinking a little bit as some of the teams are starting to, build up and through. Mm-hmm. So let's start with John from Off the Wall Hockey. We've talked a lot about Toronto and just how good they are and what's going on with them and the whole 9 yards.
Yep.
And we like some of the things that they're doing. So, John, what do you think is going on with Toronto? Do you think that they're going to be buying or selling?
Well, they're definitely, if anything, going to be buying, because they're first in the division. They're leading the way. They're going to be gearing up for a big playoff run, hopefully. They're certainly going to be buyers this year, without a doubt. I don't know how many moves they're going to make. They don't have any cap space to work with. So if anyone that they brought in, they would have to send contracts out and try and open up some space there money wise. I have a feeling, because Toronto, they added a bunch this in the off season. I think they might not do much at the deadline this year. I think this might be a very quiet deadline for the Leafs, because they have no money to work with. So unless they're able to move some contracts out, they're not going to be able to do anything. Right. We've talked a lot about them adding defense, but now really with the offseason moves they made, I don't think they're going to be adding any more defense, because they already have like 8 defensemen there. They have veteran guys. They have Spezza and Thornton, and maybe another depth winger or something like that, but I don't expect much from the Leafs this year. I think they're going to have a quiet deadline.
Okay. All right. I can attest to that a little bit, because it does seem like things have come together a lot for Toronto, because that was some of the things that we questioned at the beginning of the year was their, defense and their goaltending. So, Payton, what do you think? Do you think Toronto's going to be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline?
I think they'll be buyers, but I am with John on the fact I don't think they'll make very many moves. I think something they could use is some more depth at the center. Mikael Granlund would be, I think, a perfect guy for that third line. Kerfoot's been kind of bounced around the lineup there for Toronto, hasn't found that perfect fit. I think if you were to go after Mikael Granlund, who's good at both offense and defense, would be a perfect guy to put alongside of Mikheyev and whoever else plays on that third line. I think that would be a perfect guy, but you would have to trade away a contract, and especially with Zach Hyman, he's going to be a free agent this year, and he's going to be a big name free agent for the Toronto Maple Leafs to sign because he creates a lot of energy for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And if I was Toronto, I would be looking for kind of more of those energy players because I feel like that's what they need. They're missing Wayne Simmons right now, especially him being injured. They're missing some big heavy hitters on that squad to kind of give them that boost of energy. Hyman's been that guy, but they haven't had too much else on that squad. But yeah, I think they're going to be buyers, but I don't see them making too much moves this trade deadline.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that as well, too. It just kind of seems like they might just be doing some depth, or they might try to pick up some draft picks. What do you think, Pearlo? Give us some pearls on the Toronto Maple Leafs for the trade deadline.
What they will do and what I think they should do might be two different things. I think that I think they should identify more grit on their D line. They have an opportunity to do so. As far as cap space is concerned, you could go to like Arizona. I was trying to look that up. I really like Hjalmarsson there. He's got cups. They could add more cups there too in Toronto. Mm-hmm. And he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. Arizona can cover some cap room, and you could trade a guy like Dermott. They're going to need defenseman there next year because they're losing out on a lot, so they might take a flyer on a young Dermott. But so they could trade for Dermott, take money back, and you could work out some retainment to be able to get a guy like that. But if I were them, that's what I would be going for. This year would be a great time for Toronto to really just go for it. I mean, there are so many teams that are falling off the vine in the North. The only one that's really holding on are the one that beat them last night in Winnipeg. Mm-hmm. Montreal looks like they're falling off. Vancouver's struggling to get back to where they know they can be, but haven't been to yet. The Edmonton Oilers are floundering all over the place. If there was any year to really say, to throw caution to the wind a bit, I'd say that this would be the one. And a guy like Hjalmarsson and that Toronto Maple Leafs lineup would be just exactly what they need as far as I'm concerned. I also agree with a possible still need some depth wingers. You know, they have Simmons. And again, more why you learn your lesson and do what Tampa Bay did and bring some guys like Coleman and Gaudreau and stuff like that in if you can pluck them. But they do have cap restraints. But if I had to do one thing and I was able to do it and you could do that, somebody like Hjalmarsson would be perfect for them. But I certainly think they're buyers, sure, if they're going to be it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that for sure. I definitely agree with that as well. I just, they seem like they're much more of a try to go for it now, because when you look at their future, most of all these guys are signed up until next year. But then after next year, you know what I mean? Then you're looking at a bunch of guys coming off the books, right? Mm-hmm. So they're maybe not necessarily going to be in the market like with what John said. They may not be in the market so much this time, but maybe this time next year might be a different story for Toronto is where I'm going to go with them on this. I think it's going to be a quiet day in Toronto. If they might bring in a guy if they can, you know, like they might make that move if they can with Hjalmarsson, you know what I'm saying? But otherwise, I think that Toronto's going to probably be standing pat for the rest of the season as far as that's concerned. All right. Well, so speaking of the team that was playing against Toronto and was doing, you know, we're talking about Winnipeg's and Edmonton's and the Vancouvers and stuff like that. So let's go with the second place team in the North, and let's go with the Winnipeg Jets. Mm-hmm. And, they are currently 5 points behind the leading Toronto Maple Leafs. Mm-hmm. That is not, and then the next team is 32 with Edmonton, and then the next team is 29 with Montreal. And so once you get past, the top three teams, it drops off relatively significantly. You know what I mean? And so we're looking at Winnipeg Jets now. And Pearlo, we'll start with you first. What do you think about the Winnipeg Jets this year? Do you think they're going to be buyers or sellers? The fact that they're 5 points back and the fact that they haven't really been playing the best hockey in the world?
They've been. I really like them the way ever since they got Dubois. They've been coming along really well. I love the brand of hockey that Paul Maurice has instilled in that team. Nikolai Ehlers is taking the bull by the horns after the Lionel leaving and is looking fantastic. They're top 6 and it looks fine. I don't think they would add there. I think they could also be buyers. And they're in the same situation as Toronto. If they're going to go anywhere, it's probably going to be their defense. I mentioned Hjalmarsson, but there are many other defensemen out there. I think that they could go out. I really think it'd still be a good idea for them to improve their top 4 if they can, but they're out of cap space. And that's going to be the problem in all of these trades, of course, is cap space. However, I'm a believer that it just seems if teams want to get something done, they get something done. You withhold money here, you retain money here, you add a draft pick and all of those sort of things like that, and you find a way. There's always, if there's 2 willing teams, they will find a way.
So you think more so that Winnipeg is going to be buying at the trade deadline, if possible, to try to get more depth?
I would think so. It really when they play against Toronto, which is basically who their measuring stick right now, they seem to have a system that works really well against them. So they should be feeling like they have a really good chance to get out of the North. And as long as Connor Hellebuck comes back, and I imagine he will. He's had a little bit of a struggle early. They really should feel like they have a chance, I would say. So, I would say buyers, and maybe as we go through here, I'll identify some defenseman, because I think defenseman's going to be the name the position we talk about a lot here. Usually always is going into the playoffs looking for defensemen.
Well, defense wins championships. I mean, that's just the status across the board there. You know what I'm saying?
We were talking about one guy quite a bit right now with Ekholm. That could be an option.
Wow. That would be an amazing addition here at Winnipeg for sure, if they could do it.
Yeah, they'd have to do something like they could move Matthew Perreault or something like that just to
do something like that, yeah.
To cover the salary and then throw a first and prospect or whatever. And, he would be fantastic for that team.
Yeah. All right. Well, so tell me, John, what do you think about the Winnipeg Jets and their chances? I mean, they are 5 points back. They have been playing well against Toronto. What do you think? Are they going to be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline?
Oh, definitely buyers. I mean, this team's been way better than I thought they were going to be this year. They've had a great season. They're in second place, which I thought they were going to be down in like 5th or 6th, and they're all the way up in second. They've had an awesome year, even without Connor Hellebuck playing his best hockey. They got a great top 6 forward group that's scoring a lot of goals. Defense is obviously the question here. I think that's where they would be adding. They need a top 4 defenseman. If they're going to go into the playoffs and actually make some sort of run, they need another top 4 guy. Josh Morrissey cannot do it all alone. And then you have Pionk's had a really good year, but I don't know if he would hold up necessarily playing that same level in playoff style hockey. Same thing with DeMello. Dylan DeMello is a solid guy, but he's not. On a good team, Dylan DeMello is on your bottom pair, not in your top 4. If you're going to be a cup contending team, he's not in your top 4. So I think that that's the one area where Winnipeg needs to add, and I think there's going to be guys out there on the market that could fill that role, but there's going to be a lot of teams looking for a top 4 defenseman. So it's kind of going to be a bidding war to see who's able to bring in the top 4 guy that actually makes a big difference for the team, because I think there are going to be a lot of teams out there looking for it. So Ekholm is definitely the name that jumps out. That would be a perfect addition for the Winnipeg Jets, but that would be a perfect addition for a lot of other teams as well. So
I have a
it's
feeling
gonna
we're
be
going to be
interesting.
mentioning his name along with a lot of other teams as we go along.
Yeah, he's the guy
Mhm.
that I think is going to have a lot of suitors, and Nashville's going to be able to get a pretty good return for.
Yeah, and you know, one of the other players that you guys had mentioned before was Hjalmarsson too. I think now the only difference is that one of them has a 2-year contract at 3.75, which I believe is Ekholm, and then Hjalmarsson actually only has a 1-year contract, but his contract is a little bit more,
Yeah,
at like 4.5 or something like that, or 4.75, whatever, but it's more. Okay, so you're going to either have to do trade salary for salary. That's how this is all going to fly. I think.
Yeah.
We're just going to have to do the salary for salary. So Payton, give us your thoughts here on the Winnipeg Jets and what you think that they might be doing here at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I'll add on to the point. I think there will be definitely a lot of contract for contract trades over this next little bit, especially with the flat salary cap that we had to deal with. And I think with the Winnipeg Jets, they're definitely going to be buyers this year. Their offensive core looks lethal from top to bottom, from Stastny to Scheifele to Wheeler playing a little bit weaker defensively, analytically, to Ehlers to Kyle Connor. I'm so glad I have Ehlers on my fantasy team, but defensively is where they need to improve. They got Tucker Poolman playing up near 18 minutes, which, I mean, he is at best your top 6 guy, maybe even your 7th best defenseman. I think somebody like David Savard, if you're looking for a rental,
that's a good name too that I've been hearing out there too.
You need a right-handed defenseman in Winnipeg. Yeah, they have Pionk and Dylan DeMello, but DeMello really hasn't been playing that top time, and Savard could be a perfect guy to play alongside of Morrissey. You got Ekholm, Vince Dunn, if you're looking for a nice young defenseman to come and fill some time. Now, problem is you have to sign them back up, and Winnipeg's been having a problem with, keeping defensemen in that club and able to re-sign people. So somebody like Matthias Ekholm, I think, would be absolutely perfect for the Winnipeg Jets. Now, the problem is they have to deal with that 14-day quarantine, which I think a lot of American teams will probably use that as leverage when doing deals with other teams. And because the players would want to play more hockey because they're able to play more hockey if they do a trade in America compared to if you are being traded to the Canadian teams. So it's going to be hard for the Canadian teams, especially Winnipeg. They need to make some moves on the defense if they want to go deep this year, which I think they can. I think they could go very deep, especially with how well they've been playing against Toronto. I think Matthias Ekholm would be a big one, but that 14-day quarantine will be a pain.
I'm with you on that, man. That's something I didn't even think about with any of these trades or any of that other thing. That's a great point, because as time goes along, more and more states in the United States are lifting restrictions, and especially travel restrictions. And I know that some of the states on the eastern seaboard are going to be lifting those restrictions coming this Friday. Okay, so I'm wondering if Canada, you guys are not in any way, shape, or form going anywhere near lifting any restrictions as far as travels or anything like that, correct?
No, we haven't been opening any travels, but some of our restrictions have been easing up here in Calgary, at least, and around Alberta, from what I've been hearing.
Okay, so that's going to be, I think, the ticket right there. If teams are going to be allowed to make trades with the northern teams, okay, without having to deal with that 14-day quarantine, I think that's going to make things a little different and will open things up more so. Otherwise, though, I agree. The only way you're going to get any trades is if you do amongst the Canadian teams. You know what I mean? And what really is that going to be like?
Really, you don't got a lot of defensemen around.
That's what I mean. It's not going to be much.
I think the Canadian teams are going to make trades well before the deadline.
Oh, yeah.
See, yeah. Okay, that's what I want.
That will be the difference. Is they'll make trades well before the deadline.
See, this is why I bring the greatest hockey minds together, because we talk about all this great stuff. See, I would have never thought about that, but that's exactly right, though, because I agree. I think they're going to make those trades sooner. You know what I mean? So that they can get around that 14-day quarantine, or so that those players can do that 14-day quarantine and then be able to come back and play. You know what I mean? So
another reason why a lot of teams will do that is this opening up restrictions could blow up in everybody's face and end up being right back on it again. Nobody knows. It already happened already. So that's another reason why people they do it. Or other teams may do it early just in case.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I get it. I understand. I mean, but look, we're coming to that time now where places are making those types of decisions, and those types of decisions are going to affect how different players are going to be able to be traded back and forth to different teams. I mean, that's just the logistics of it. So now we're going to go with with Homer up there, and we're going to talk about the Oilers. And gosh,
are we?
I guess we'll start with Payton first.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Gee, Payton, you're a Calgary fan.
I'll finish off.
Yeah, big Calgary fan.
I'll finish off his rant. Go ahead.
Okay. Edmonton has been playing better as of late. For the most part, they had a nice little 8-2 streak there for 10 games there for a little while, and then things happen. But all things considered, they're only 1 point back of the second place team. Okay, and they have been playing relatively better than the competition around them for the most part. So, what do you think about Edmonton, Payton? And you only get 4 minutes, go.
Beside for the bad coaching, I think the Edmonton Oilers have been pretty good this year. I've been pretty excited about them. I think if we were, I think we are going to be buyers. I've been hearing tons of rumblings about Jake DeBrusk, especially him being scratched in that last game there for Boston.
Yeah.
You can have him. He's useless.
I'll take him. I'll take him for Tyson Barrie, man. Tyson Barrie, I was hearing a deal was like Jake DeBrusk or Tyson Barrie and your home back in and I heard, which I would love. Tyson Barrie's been kind of useless on the defense since we already have like 50 billion offensive defensemen on our defensive core already. I've also been hearing rumors about, Jones and Ethan Bear maybe going after Mathias Ekholm. There could be multiple routes that Ken Holland goes with this because we do have players that we could trade out and chase on, or Tyson Barrie, even a Zach Kassian if someone wants them. But I've been hearing Eric Stahl, Jake DeBrusk, or even Mathias Ekholm coming to the Edmonton Oilers, which I would love all three of those players. Eric Stahl is a good third-line centerman. Kyle Turris hasn't worked very well for us. He had a good last game, but that's against Ottawa. He just hasn't been that type of two-way guy we really need him to be. And I think Eric Stahl, with his experience, his cup experience too, I think he'd be a huge piece to the Edmonton Oilers. I think that would be the main guy that I would focus on moving for, because Jujhar Khaira has been our third-line centerman, and I think if we were to focus more on a third-line centerman, it would make our 5-on-5 hockey way better in Edmonton, which I think is something that we need to improve upon. And I don't think we're going to be able to touch the goaltending until the offseason. Just way too much cap you would have to move around, especially with Koskinen's contract right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that because they all look. I mean, his contract is 4.5 this year, and for the next year, and that's the other thing too, where they're Edmonton kind of needs to make it happen here because they got a lot of guys up for free agency after next year. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So this is that their window is kind of coming to a close here, and let's face it, they've got the most prolific points producing offense in the league right now. So I mean, they obviously don't need offense. But the back end might be something of a concern for them as well. Pearlo, why don't you drop some wisdom on us on the Edmonton Oilers and give us your take on what you think about where the Edmonton Oilers are going to be here at the trade deadline, or even potentially even before?
Well, they're likely going to be buyers, but he mentioned goaltending. And as far as I'm concerned, if you can't get goaltending, you might as well be sellers. They don't have the goaltending to be successful in the playoffs anyways. So if you make the playoffs, whatever. If you can't get goaltending, forget about it. Just sell off whatever you can sell off. Get some draft picks and try her again next year because this goaltending is just not good enough. So
tell us how you really feel there, Pearlo.
It's not. It's just not.
Right.
The Kyle Turris as a third line center. If you're going to be buyers, I agree with Payton for sure. You need a third line center that can actually play hockey. So Turris is not it. I thought when they got him from Nashville, I thought, okay, Dave Tippett's going to get the best out of this guy possibly, blah, blah, blah. No. So maybe go back. The other guy that they were looking at and was a guy I was hoping they were going to grab was Eric Holla from the Nashville. And he's one of the few players that have played well for Nashville this year. Mm-hmm. Maybe go back to Nashville, give him a call and see if he can fill that hole there. Possibly throw a flyer at Pecorine or something, like just to see if he can get that old magic back or something. He's right. It's going to be hard to get goaltenders out there because there isn't many goaltenders to go around. We all were talking before the season started, is if you didn't get a goaltender before the season started, you probably weren't going to get one in the regular season.
Yeah.
There's any goaltenders out there be worth anything are going to be on teams that want them, because most of the teams that don't have good goaltending as far as a top two pair is concerned aren't going to make it. So they're not going to want to give up their number one likely, and there's not going to be too many number twos available. And that's exactly the way it is. There really isn't number twos available unless you can convince possibly Miller and Anaheim to take a shot at a cup. I'd be happy with that. Something like that. It's not going to cost too much. And if he does happen to go on a run, and Miller can do that, you might have a chance. But as it stands right now, I think the Edmonton Oilers will sort of be in buying mode on a few things. But looking at their team, I really don't think if they can get goaltending, I don't think they're going to be trying too hard this year.
Going to have to tend to agree with you on that one. John, what do you think about Edmonton and what they're putting together up there? I mean, they definitely are prolific on offense, and with what Payton and Pearlo said, and we all kind of agreed on this too at the beginning of the season, where the goaltending is going to have to be the key. What do you think about Edmonton and their trade deadline acquisitions, or what they're going to be doing?
I think they're going to be looking to buy, but I'm with Pearlo. If they don't get any goaltending, then they're not going anywhere in the playoffs. Koskinen and Smith are not taking you anywhere in the playoffs. And this team at the deadline last year went out and made a bunch of moves and brought in Mike Green and Tyler Ennis and Andreas Athanasiou, and that all blew up in their face, and they couldn't even beat Chicago in the qualifying round. So I don't know if they're going to be a little more gun shy on the trade market this deadline, because they went out and they made all those moves last year and it did absolutely nothing for them. But if this team needs anything, it's a third line center. That's the one area where they are, absolutely putrid right now. Jujhar Khaira being your third line center, or being on your third line in general, is a problem. Mm-hmm. And, there are some guys out there that they might be able to make a move for in that position. I think they need to add a defensive defenseman as well, because with the exception of Adam Larson, they do not have a defensive-minded defenseman. It's all puck-moving, offensive guys, and they don't defend well in their own end. And I think they really need a shutdown D guy. But they might not even try to make that move if they don't get goaltending, because Ken Holland's got to be smart enough to realize that you're not going anywhere with Smith and Koskinen.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you on that for sure. I mean, and that's the thing that kind of surprised me as well, too, that you brought up, John, about what they did last year at the trade deadline and everything, and what they tried to do last year. And then they got to the return to play and it didn't do anything for them. You know what I mean? And they weren't able to go anywhere and do anything with it. Yep. So here's the thing, though. In spite of how not good the goaltending is, it just seems like right now, it just seems like their offense is enough to outlast that kind of issue. But I agree with everybody else. Once we get into the playoffs, where now you're not necessarily playing against teams that you've seen all year, and you're playing against other teams that have, much different talent and or whatever the case is, I agree. I think that their goaltending is going to be highly suspect and much coveted. But with that being said, who's of what goalies are out there that they could even potentially, they have zero cap space. They got Koskinen is on $4.5 million. Smith is on $1.5 million. Smith even has a no trade clause.
Mhm.
So I mean, who are you going to get?
Yeah, you'd have to give up, like Payton mentioned, Barry. You'd have to throw Barry out there just to cover the cost of the contract.
For
the
what?
cost of the contract. Okay, well, let's say what I got here. Cost of the contract. And then you would, like, say, Quick out of Los Angeles, possibly.
Yeah.
He stinks now.
I
You're
don't
getting
know.
older and
you're
older
right,
for
though.
goalies.
You're right. There isn't really. That's what we were saying. I say Miller out of Anaheim. If you can convince Miller to take some little time away from his family to give it a shot, that would be the guy I'd be going for. He doesn't cost that much. You can probably make the finance money work somehow. That would be the guy I'd be looking at myself from what I see. I don't see anybody else here really because all the teams are going to want to keep their backups going in the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was hearing Merzlikins from Columbus, but Elliot Freeman said that they wouldn't be making a move for a goaltender until the off season, just because of the fact that, especially with COVID, you want to be careful with your goalies. You don't want to be trading away like a backup or a good starting goalie like Merzlikins until the off season, because then you might have to quarantine. You might have to use one of your taxi squad goalies, and you really don't want to get into that type of situation where you're having to play a goalie 10 games in a row like the Oilers did. Don't want that happening.
No, I definitely don't want to be doing that. All right, so now let's go to this team here. It's fourth in the division right now, but this team here just seems like I don't know what's going on with the Montreal Canadiens. We really thought that Montreal was going to struggle out of the gates because of all the moves that they had made and all the players that had come and gone and everything like that. And we thought they were going to struggle. And boy, they just lit it up in the first 10, 12 games of the season and just lit it up. But now suddenly the coach has been fired, the goalie coach has been fired, and now they're kind of starting back from the beginning again. And it's like, whoa, what? What happened there? I'm going to start off with John on this one. John, what's going on in Montreal? Can you
good
give us
question.
A little insight on maybe if they're going to be they've already made some coaching moves. I mean, I guess what other player moves could they potentially make?
I don't know. This is going to be an interesting team to watch because on paper, they have a really good lineup. Like, you don't look at this roster and see really any holes. They're deep down the wing. They maybe could use another center, but that's not going to be an easy move to make. Defensively, they've actually been really good. Like Petrie, Weber, Edmonton. Maybe they add another defenseman. I don't know what the heck you do if you're this team, because they should be better than what they have been.
Yeah.
This last stretch has not been good. They should be better than that. There's not a lot of glaring holes in this lineup. I wonder if Bergevin goes out and tries to make some sort of big splash move and really make a significant kind of trade. Maybe like a Philip Forsberg or someone like that, where he really tries to make a significant move. I don't think this isn't going to be add a veteran depth piece and be done with it. Like, you're either doing nothing and just trying to get this team to play the way that they should, or you're making a significant splash move. There's going to be no in between here with Montreal.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that 100%, because they made all of their moves at the end of last year during the off season. You know what I mean? And I kind of feel that they've already kind of expended that little bit of, you know what I mean, that whatever that they did that at the beginning of the off season, and where it was able to do all that. I don't think you're going to see this team doing really much of anything other than potentially adding a defensive player or something along those lines. Because look, let's face it, they've already fired their coach, they've already fired their goalie coach. You know what I mean? This is almost like a train wreck season for them. If you're not going to be able to get it, I mean, they have a little bit of money. They got like 1 point something million on their in their trade or their cap space. But who are you going to get? You're going to have to get somebody to come in and do something. Payton, what do you think? Who do you think is going to be on the docket there for Montreal, if anybody?
It's tough to say with Montreal. I know one of the biggest problems they've been having recently is Carey Price has been a big issue for them. He's been, on the downfall for the past couple of years, and you've been kind of seeing it this year where some games he's just, he's playing like typical Carey Price, where he's fantastic, and then there's other nights where it's just, what is this Carey Price?
Yeah.
And that's been the biggest problem for, I think, for Montreal. Their defense looks great. Their offense on paper looks amazing. They have a lot of good goal scorers. I don't know if they would be able to do anything with Suzuki and Konkin and Nami. You're probably going to be having to pay them bonuses, especially with how well Suzuki's been playing. You might have to pay those guys bonuses. So that leaves you with not very much cap left on that floor. And especially since you've been having to move Paul Byron through taxi squad and back up to save some money there for Montreal. I don't know. Maybe go after Sam Bennett, Jake Vertan, and one of those tweener guys, or maybe go to Detroit, ask about a Bobby Ryan. I think Montreal needs that all-star type of player, though. They need that guy to be that number one centerman, because they haven't really had that in a long time. People have been talking about Jack Eichel and his perfect destinations. Montreal would be a perfect destination for Jack Eichel. This squad has a great selection of wingers, goal scorers. It would be the motherland for Jack Eichel.
I was just going to say, great. That would be,
I think if you were to go and trade for somebody, Jack Eichel would be your guy, but it wouldn't make any sense just because of the fact that you have to pay him $10 million and you're already paying Carey Price $10.5 million. Mm-hmm. I don't see it fitting under the cap for the Montreal Canadiens. So I would see them as buyers, but I don't see them making any moves just because of the fact that their salary cap is they're too uptight with it.
Okay. Yeah, because they don't have very much. And with the bonuses that they're going to have to pay and everything like that, it's going to make it that much more difficult. Pearlo, what do you think? Let me pose this one here for you, Pearlo. You were talking about Edmonton needing a goalie, right? And you're talking about this huge splash deal. Let me throw a splash deal at you. Carey Price.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that would be wonderful, but it would be an off-season move for one. I mean, I talked about the possibility of trading Carey Price a while ago. He's got a no movement clause. I can't see him saying that I'd like to go to Edmonton. I just can't see that. So that's not likely going to happen. One thing, as far as Montreal is concerned, the guy I think they go after is either Bernier or Grice in Detroit. Those are about the only goaltenders I can see that could move the needle enough for them to be able to stop enough pucks to score in the playoffs.
Okay.
And they're fairly affordable. They should be able to get them for all right, and be able to work out something that they can even up the money, whatever the case may be. But that would be my case for Montreal. I totally with John and Payton on this sense. The problem here is we don't know what's going on in that room, and Weber just came straight out and said there's a problem in the room. They fired Julian to have another coach in there to solve this problem in the room. I'm just filling in gaps here. I don't know exactly what it is, but it sounds like that.
Right.
Okay, if you don't see an improvement in Montreal, then eventually they're going to highlight a player or two that is the problem in that room, and we'll find out who they are at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Because they will be the ones probably, unless the problem in the room is Carey Price, then they're in bigger trouble than I could possibly imagine. Because, I mean, he's having a poor time right now, and I don't know what his attitude is like that. I don't know nothing about him. All I've heard is good things about him. I'm not making a rumor there. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, throwing things at a wall here.
Yeah.
I do know that their third line center. Why do I always forget his name?
Deno.
I know Deno was speaking a lot in the media in the offseason about the fact that he was a second line center, and there seemed to be friction between him and Domi, and he spoke a lot about that. Like, he spoke quite a bit. So that could be a possibility. And if anything was going to be happening here, like I agree with Payton as well, for sure, that they would be, and John as well, they'd be looking for a veteran center to play with those two kids.
Eric Stahl.
Yeah, Stahl was one of the ones that came to my mind, or somebody like that.
Yeah.
That Eric Stahl or something like that, to bring some
stability there and
into whatever that situation. Try to find somebody that's a good problem solver veteran type
That's
guy
a good, yeah.
that's done a lot of things. So.
You know, now did Weber say this stuff after the new coach took over, or was this said?
Yeah,
almost immediately after he got fired.
Okay, so then I'm wondering if it might have been that the message that Julian was trying to get through was not the right message for the team anymore.
Or at least according to a couple people.
Right. You know what I mean? So maybe they did get rid of what the issue was. And, you know, now they just have to start coming together under a new system and under a new regime. You know what I mean? And that's going to take a couple of games. That's not going to happen, you know, in the first week or two. That's going to take a little while. You know what I mean? And with the lack of practices and stuff like that teams are experiencing, that's going to be even harder to do, especially with a new coach coming in halfway through the season. You know what I mean? So, all right. So now the next team that's on the list here was obviously the Vancouver Canucks. They've been doing a little bit better, but they are many points. They have 26 points and the Toronto Maple Leafs have 38. But they're only 3 points out of the fourth place spot against Montreal. Vancouver is doing 12 and 15 and 2, and they've won the last 3 in a row. So we'll start down there with Pearlo. Pearlo, what do you think about Vancouver? Do you think they're going to be buyers or sellers this year?
I think they're probably going to be in between. I don't think they want to sell off much of what they have, but they're probably not looking at buyers either. I mean, if they were going to buy, they definitely would be adding more to the defense. Myers really is still playing too high, and stuff, but they're going to need to see a resurgence for that to happen, which I think is perfectly possible for that to be the case. Now, I have heard Tanner Pearson's name out there because he's a UFA next year. If they're right out of it by the deadline, I could see somebody like Tanner Pearson for sure. They don't necessarily need to re-sign a guy like that moving up. They've got some younger players, even on their lineup right now, like Adam Goudet, who I still think doesn't get enough of a shot. So somebody like that might be on the block. I don't think it'd be too much if they were right out of it, mainly because they really don't have too much to offer. Maybe somebody wants to take a shot at Brayden Holtby if they're sellers at the deadline. I wouldn't, but you never know, I suppose. I don't really see much they could do. If they do a turnaround and then, like they sort of did last year, they come on in the end and they get into the top 4, then possibly they're probably looking to add to their defense, but I don't think Vancouver is in a position where they want to be throwing draft picks out like crazy. They're not totally out of the building mode here. So I don't see them trading their first or something like that. They would be trying to find somebody on the cheap that they could get somewhere for a third or something like that to add depth to the defense and just keep on rolling with this lineup. Jake Virtanen has been out there, but he's played better the last little while. Ever since he was on the rumor mill, he's played better. That's a possibility, I suppose. Still, there's people out there that there's players out there that there was a actual trade of Danton Heinen, who's from BC, from Anaheim, for Jake Virtanen and stuff like that. So possibilities, but I don't see anything to Brandon Sutter. If they're right out of it, somebody will probably take a flyer on Brandon Sutter. They can retain some salary and send him somewhere. So somebody like that.
Okay. I mean, they do have some long-term injured players. So they do have that potential money there available because they don't really have much of anything otherwise as far as money-wise is concerned. They do have Michael Furland on the long term, and he's a big cap hit at 3.5. You know what I mean? And then they have 2 other players that are equivalent to almost $2 million. So they're looking at about $6 million in injury cap space. You know what I mean? So if it were to come down to it, and if those players were to be on the long-term IR throughout the rest of the season, that would give them a little bit more wiggle room to do something or make a deal happen for Vancouver. John, what do you think about Vancouver and what's going on up there? And what do you think about their chances of having a trade here, doing something at the trade deadline?
Well, they don't have the money to buy anything more than a rental because Elias Pettersson needs a new contract next year.
Mhm.
He's an RFA at the end of this year, and I mean you're looking at 7-8 million a year for him to sign there long term. So
Mhm.
they have no money. So if they do buy anything, I think it would be a defenseman, and it would be just a rental for the rest of this year, and that would be it. Honestly, I don't think they're even really going to buy. I think they might sell off like a guy like Tanner Pearson and Sutter. Brandon Sutter and Pearson are both UFAs at the end of this year. I would say they're both probably gone. And maybe on the back end, a guy like Jordy Ben, they might be able to get a
Yeah.
fourth round pick for him or something like that. I don't think they're going to be buying. I don't think they have the money to be buying. They know that they have some big RFAs coming up, Thatcher Demko as well. So they don't have the money to really take on any contracts. And
Exactly.
if anything, I mean, it's an uphill battle for them to make the playoffs. They're still not out of it, but Montreal does have 5 games in hand on them and a 3-point lead. So that's going to be an uphill battle, to say the least, for them to get into the postseason. If anything, I think they might sell off some of those older guys.
Yeah.
And just kind of try again next year with hopefully Elias Pettersson locked up to a long-term deal.
There you go. So Payton, can you take off your Oiler hat and put on the Vancouver hat and change the sign behind you back there to say the Canucks? So what put on your trade deadline hat here for the Canucks?
This team I was excited about during the off season. I thought this team was going to do a little bit better, but then they didn't. And kind of looking back at the team now, I should have seen that this team was incomplete and that there was a lot of there's going to be lots of faulties. Tyler Myers, he's horrible defensively. His analytics is horrible. He's good offense, but defense, when you have Quinn Hughes and you already got a lot of offensive guys, you don't need Tyler Myers there, and especially for the contract you have him at. For me, honestly, I would trade away a lot of people this year, especially going into the next year. I don't think this team would be ready next year just because of the fact you're still paying Louis Eriksson, you're still paying a lot of contracts, and you're having to pay Hughes, Demko, and Pettersson next year. This team's going to have no money. I would try to get rid of Beagle and Roussel as well going into this trade deadline as well. See if anyone's going to have any biters on that, because Beagle, I still can't believe Betting signed that contract for Beagle, but besides the point, I think they should try to trade away a lot of their big contract players, especially even Alexander Edler. I know he's a big face for the team, but he's been dropping off a bit this year as well, and he hasn't playing as great as what he was last year. It's been legit Quinn Hughes and then Nate Schmidt, but even then, he's making mistakes as well. You would need to redo that entire defensive core just to get something out of it. So if I was the Vancouver Canucks right now, I would definitely be selling this team because, you might be 3 points back of the Montreal Canadiens, but you have 2 games ahead of the Canadiens.
Yeah.
And plus, you just have the Flames who picked up Sutter, and who knows what the Flames might do this coming off season as well. And the Flames just look like a better team than the Canucks as well. I just think the Canucks should just be selling, getting rid of those bad contracts, and then try for next year if possible.
Gonna have to agree with you on that one. It doesn't seem like there's gonna be much of, with the low points production and the fact that they're in 5th place with Montreal that many games in hand, it seems like a long uphill climb for them for sure. And it does seem like they might be more of the sellers at the end of the year, especially with some of those bigger contracts and stuff. So I'm gonna have to agree with all you guys and go with that. So. All right, here we go now. We're coming to the end now. We got the last 2 teams, and the 6th place team is the Calgary Flames. And I don't know what's going on up there in Calgary, but the rumblings that we've heard or that we've all kind of seen or read is that we know that Gaudreau would very much like to not be playing in Calgary. And I really think that that's going to be a name that's going to be on the block.
Oh, yeah.
And it's probably already is. It's just who's going to be able to offer them enough to say, all right, they're going to pull the trigger. You know what I mean? So we'll start off with the great Pearlo wisdom, and give us some Pearlos on the Calgary at trade deadline.
Well, I mean, they're in desperation mode. You don't go out and fire your coach and hire Dwayne Sutter without being in desperation mode. You take a 70-year-old dude who's obviously not going to be around for too long to try to just get something out of this season.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the Hail Mary save your job general manager move. Like,
Yeah.
And it could work. I love Dwayne Sutter. I mean, he's at the very least, he's going to be able to. I think what he's really there for is to put a stamp on who's leaving more than anything. I don't even think they believe that they're going to make the cup this year or make it do much this year anyways, even if they do make the playoffs. I don't think they really believe it. I think they just trust Dwayne Sutter to be able to say, who are the guys that you're going to want to compete with in the future? And I think that, and they didn't really trust a rookie coach like they had to be able to make that assessment as much as they did Dwayne Sutter. I think that's the reason why he's there.
Yeah, we all thought that Jeff Ward was doing a pretty good job up there.
I like Jeff. Jeff Ward's going to land on his feet. He's going to find a job somewhere.
Yeah.
It's just they just happen to trust a guy like Sutter who's won cups and everything to assess this lineup. I would say. Right or wrong, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think Calgary makes horrible decisions with their lineup. So they'll probably make horrible decisions on who they choose to make decisions on their lineup. But I just think that that's likely it. And if that's the case, from what I see from Johnny Gaudreau on the ice, this is just not the team for him. It's just not. You know, and I don't know if he wants out or whatever. But I can't see him combining with Dwayne Sutter and Dwayne Sutter saying, "Yeah, keep that guy." I think he's probably going to find his way out. Dwayne Sutter's going to love Matthew Tkachuk, and he's going to love Elias Lindholm and Michael Backlund and guys like that. But Monahan, Gaudreau, like the core of this team has got to change, and that's probably what is going to happen. I don't think this happens at the deadline, though. Highly unlikely. This is stuff that's going to happen at the draft or in the offseason, stuff like that. Doesn't really make sense right now with a lot of things we mentioned with COVID and all that kind of stuff like that. But it could. It's possible. I'm not saying it's not possible. Somebody could really put out what they need on that. But I just think that they're going to want the whole year for him to establish that. So even when they're out of the playoffs, which guys are the ones that are still competing for their jobs, right? And they trust Dwayne Sutter to be able to do that. So I don't think it'll happen at the deadline, but I do think you're going to see a totally different Calgary team next year.
Okay, I can buy into that. Payton, what do you think about the Calgary Flames? I mean, that was the other team that fired their coach halfway through the season. I mean, why? And we all thought, I mean, at least I know that Pearlo and I thought that Ward was doing a pretty decent job, all things considered, up there in Calgary. You know what I mean? Seeing as how they've had, 6 coaches now, or 5 coaches in the last 6 years. I mean, what's going on up there? All right, hey, give us a little lowdown here on the trade deadline for the Calgary Flames.
I know a lot of the fans, they definitely did want Jeff Ward to be fired, and I knew a lot of them they had mixed feelings, kind of like what I was feeling when Sutter got hired. I was like mixed feelings on them. I'm like, I don't know. He's won a couple cups before. He could either be he could win them cups, or it just they'll be a bottom feeder team in these next couple of years. And I've been saying this since the start of the season when I was reviewing this team. This team is just not good enough. And they're not. They don't look very good on paper. And the thing is, they're not going to be able to do very much this offseason unless you get rid of a Gaudreau and Monahan, just because you have so many people locked up on so many contracts. Like you have Lucic locked up for the next 3, Backlund for the next 4, Monahan for the next 3, same with Lindholm for the next 4, and their entire defensive core is locked up for the next little bit as well. So for this team, you couldn't even really be sellers. I've been hearing they've been wanting some right-handed shooters on the team as well, like Arvidsson or Forsberg, I've been hearing for the Calgary Flames. I don't think it's a realistic thing for them. I think they almost need a first-line centerman, just kind of like what Montreal's kind of going through right now. They need that star centerman to, take this team to that next step. Lindholm is not that guy for the team. Neither is Sean Monahan. Monahan is completely dropped off. I was talking with a couple of Calgary fans, and they have not been a big fan of Monahan's defensive game, and same with his offensive game as well. He's been losing that kind of drive, and you can say almost the same with Gaudreau. Gaudreau has been crazy offensively this year, and I think if going into this offseason could fetch you a pretty good amount of good players for the future of the Calgary Flames. So I don't see them doing anything. I could see them being a buyer just because of Brad Treliving and the things that he will do to make this team a playoff team and keep this team floating. I do see them going after kind of like an Arvidsson Forsberg, but I don't see it happening because they'll probably be near the bottom of the league anyways for the North Division. So, I don't really see them doing too much at the trade deadline.
Okay. I think they're going to be more of the seller type. I think you're going to start to see some of those big contracts go away, and I think we are going to see the name like Johnny Gaudreau is going to fly before or around the trade deadline. I just have that feeling. That's too much of a talent to be, kind of wasting away somewhere where it can't do anybody any good. And I think somebody is going to be ponying up the money to bring him somewhere. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, John, what do you think about Calgary, and what do you think about where they're going to be and what's going to happen with them this year?
I think there could be a big difference between what they should do and what they actually do. Knowing the Calgary Flames, I feel like they're going to go into desperation buy mode at the deadline and try and bring somebody in to push them into a playoff spot. Like, you don't go out and get Daryl Sutter to be a non-playoff team. This is a guy who's coached almost 1,300 career games. He has over 600 wins. He has 2 Stanley Cups. Like, you don't bring that in to not make the playoffs. So the fact that they hired Sutter screams to me that they're still trying to make some sort of run this year. And I think that means they're going to do really stupid things at the trade deadline, trade away draft picks, bring in players that don't actually help them very much. And probably screw themselves up even further than what they already are. What they should do is pretty much nothing. I think they should just kind of wait out the rest of the year, let Sutter get a feel for this team, understand who he wants and who he doesn't. And then on draft day, you go out and you try and make a Johnny Gaudreau trade, and you try and make a Sean Monahan trade. And I don't think those are deals that would be done at deadline day just because of the amount of money involved. But on draft day, I think those are the kind of deals that you can get done. And that is when the Calgary Flames should really make their changes and try and get some sort of new look to this team, because this core is not going to win anything the way that it is right now. Mm-hmm. And they've proven that over the past 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we talked about this pretty much on multiple shows. We talked about it on the Pearlo show that, look, that core has been up there for that amount of time and they still haven't done anything. Yep. They haven't won anything, and they haven't. And when they were a number 1 seed, they got beat down like they weren't.
They got embarrassed.
I mean? Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. I think that they're bringing in Sutter or Suter, however you want to say his name. I think they're bringing him in to clean house. That's kind of what I think. Yeah. I think that you're going to see some players go at the trade deadline, and then I also think you're going to see the big names go maybe that don't go at the trade deadline also at the during the draft. So that was a great point there, John, about bringing that up, because I really think that that's another way for them to potentially build a team that Sutter is looking to have, and giving him pieces to do that with at the not only at the trade deadline but also during the draft. You know what I mean? Yeah. So.
What worries me about that Sutter signing, before we move on to the next one, I think I said Daryl Sutter, right? Yeah. But what worries me about that signing is that Lucic thought it was a good idea. To bring in Sutter.
Lucic is going to love Sutter, and Sutter's
going to love the big skating.
He played with him in LA, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Okay. So now, the worst team. Well, they're not the worst team right anymore. They've gotten off the schneid of being the worst team, but they're pretty close. I mean, they're fighting hard to be the worst team, and that's the Ottawa Senators. They've played more. Well, yeah, they played 28 games, and they are 9-18 and way back. So the chances of them making any kind of anything happen this year is probably zero. So what's going to happen with the Ottawa Senators? And we'll start off with John this time.
Yeah, they might be able to sell off some veteran pieces, but they don't really have a lot of veteran pieces. They're just a very young team. I mean, they've got so many young guys in that lineup that they're obviously still in a rebuild, and they're just going to try and keep, rolling with those young guys and see how they look. And I don't think you're going to see a ton of moves here. I think some of the older guys, that they do have, they could be able to move for maybe some late round picks or something like that. Like Artem Anisimov, although I don't know if anyone would even be in on him at this point. He's making way too much money for bringing practically nothing to the table. They just reacquired Ryan Dzingel, but he's a UFA at the end of the year, so maybe they could flip him for a second or third round pick or something like that. I think, on the back end, maybe someone takes a stab at Eric Goodbranson as a depth defenseman who might need like a bottom pair guy or something like that. I don't know. There's not a lot of older guys left with this group. They're a very, very young team right now. Derek Stepan would have been a great guy to trade at the deadline, but he's out for the rest of the year with shoulder surgery, so you can't move him now. Brayden Coburn is sitting down on the taxi squad. That's another guy similar to Goodbranson. I think maybe a team looking for a depth veteran guy could add in as like a number 7 D-man or something like that. But there's not a whole lot to move in Ottawa. They're just going to keep rolling with the young guys and maybe sell off a couple of those older guys if they get the chance to for, a late round pick or something like that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of it seems like pretty slim pickings up there.
Yeah.
As far as anything like that. And their average age is 25 years for the team. Payton, what do you think about what's going on up there with Ottawa? Do you think they're going to keep riding the youngsters, or do you think what do you think they're going to do up there, Payton?
Yeah, I think they're going to continue riding with the youngsters. I don't see them trading too many people like a Dzingel. I think that's the only guy that I would see them trading. I think the rest of the team, they just have too much of a kind of a team kind of value. I think they're trying to go with right now is with that defensive core. They're really just trying to build it from within, and I think it works with a lot of teams. We've seen it with Tampa Bay. From building it within, you get better chemistry. We were talking about in the offseason with kind of like the university connection that they've been getting with Jacob Bernard-Docker and Jake Sanderson. I think they're going to continue developing their young players. I don't really even see them trade away Eric Goodbranson just because of the fact he's been such a big heavyweight for the team, a guy that's been standing up for a lot of their rookies, especially when Jujar laid a big hit there on Norris in the last game there. Eric Goodbranson went right after Kara. And I think that they want to kind of keep this team the way that it is. They're looking like they're enjoying hockey, even though they're losing. And that is really, really good as a GM, as a coach. You want to see these guys happy. You want to see Tkachuk and Stützle having a friendship together. And Batherson playing the way that he is. And Norris and all these youngsters that they've been playing the way that they've been playing. I think they want to continue that, and they're going to continue developing this team. I know Mark Mathot said that this team could be better than the Toronto Maple Leafs here in the next 3 years. And honestly, if they keep building up this chemistry like how they have been, who knows? The sky's the limits for Ottawa right now, but I don't see them doing too much at the trade deadline.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too. Pearlo, drop some wisdom on us here about the Ottawa Senators, would you?
Yeah, much the same as what John and Payton have said. However, I would like to say that Ottawa has really shown that they're not afraid to give up some of their future right now for some highly character veterans. They gave up 2 seconds for Stepan. Stepan is a highly is very much character to the nines. Like, he probably going to be a coach at the end of his career. He's really great at building young players and all that stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they did something like that. More likely after the season's over. But if it's the right guy and it's the one that are like, this is going to help for our young players and we want this to be the prototype of what our young players want to be, I could see them throwing a draft pick at a veteran at the deadline. They think outside of the box like that. They're not doing a normal thing. And we've mentioned it several times. I doubt he's got a no movement clause, so it's not likely. But just based on character, I haven't identified an actual player yet. Looking through everything, because it just came to my mind while we were talking. But Nicholas Hjalmarsson is a great example. A guy like that probably wouldn't go to Ottawa. He wants to go win another cup somewhere, or whatever the case may be. But I mean, if they sold him on the right in the right package and said, hey, you know what, we'll sign you up for some more, can extend your career. We really want you to build up our young players. We think we're going to be winning here really quick. You know, talking to their agent, you never know. He may say, okay, you know, I would love to be that kind of guy. Maybe he wants to be a coach when he's out of hockey, and he wants to build up that resume, like Stepan did going to Ottawa. Probably was part of the reason why he made a decision like that. So somebody like that, I think, is possible. But besides that, I agree. There's not much on this roster you're going to get much for right now. They kind of would like to, because they would like to also add a few more draft picks as well if they can. But if they're going to do something, I think it might be something like that, because they seem to value it quite a bit. 2 seconds for Stepan was a lot to give up.
Yeah,
for a guy that made his salary.
Yeah, especially 2 seconds. I mean, seconds are pretty well coveted in the NHL as far as, like, you know, that a lot of teams get some really good players from that second round draft. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Here's the thing. Ottawa seems like they're on the cusp. They have some young talent. They have some money. You know what I mean? And they potentially could be one of those teams that might be one of those buyers of one of those particular veterans. You know, who knows? I mean, anything could happen. You know what I'm saying? And without really, you know, knowing what direction the team wants to go. I mean, they're obviously very young and they want to continue to build on that. You know what I mean? And they don't really have a lot of assets to sell away, but they do have money and they do have picks, and money and picks can bring you players. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so if they really wanted somebody, they could probably do it. You know, they have the money to do it and they have the picks. So if they really wanted somebody, they could probably do it. Mm-hmm. That's all I'm going to say about Ottawa. I don't really think that they're going to be much of anything this year as far as getting into the playoffs or anything like that. I just it's going to be next year for them or the following, and as they continue to progress and move along, seeing these young players develop and seeing how this team comes along. I would be interested to see if they do make one of those moves for, I mean, you know, maybe a Jack Eichel would come there. Who knows? I mean, they have the money. You know what I mean? So it's not like they couldn't do it. Or you know, Hjalmarsson, or even Ekholm. I mean, all these big names, even Johnny Gaudreau. I mean, I'm just throwing stuff out there of people that could potentially be going there. They have the money to do it. That's all I'm saying.
Another really good one before it is that they might identify a talent in Casey Middlestat or something like that, a guy that's fallen off the vine on a team. That they want to do a rebirth that's still young. They might
those are the kind of moves I would be expecting you're going to see teams make, especially in the interdivisions.
Sorry to step on you, John, there.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
So
I think that Gaudreau would be much better for Ottawa to go after than Eichel, because as soon as you go after Eichel, Buffalo's gonna want either Stützle or Tkachuk or Jake Sanderson back coming the other way, and I'm not doing that if I'm the Ottawa Senators. So I think Gaudreau would be a lower cost option that could still bring a talented goal scorer to the lineup. And then if you have Gaudreau in there, that helps out Brady Tkachuk on that left side a lot and takes a lot of the pressure off of him. So that would be a move I'd be all over if I'm the Ottawa Senators. I'm probably not in on Eichel if I'm Ottawa.
Yeah. I'm with you. I mean, I was just throwing ideas out there. I mean, who knows? Anything could happen. It's the NHL. Anything could happen. Well, folks, I think this has been a really great breakdown of the North Division for the NHL and the trade deadlines here at the Steel Flyers All Sports Network. I'd like to thank John from Off the Wall Hockey for joining us. I'd like to thank Payton from Payton on the Radio for joining us, and I'd like to thank Pearlo from Pearlo Wisdom for joining us. You can catch all these guys at the Steel Flyers All Sports Network at www.steelflyers.com. Each one of these guys has their own page that they can get all their information on and check them all out. Check out their YouTube channel and check out all the great things on the website. Please hit the like and subscribe. Thank you all very much for watching. Just remember, folks, stay safe, stay strong, and hang tough.